بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Viewers and listeners, welcome back to another Ilmfeed podcast with your host Shabir Hassan. Alhamdulillah, I hope you're all having an amazing day so far, and we hope you're enjoying, inshallah, the podcast and the discussions that we've been having with different guests from around the world. We're going to keep that going, of course, today. With this next episode, we have another very special guest with us, alhamdulillah. Someone who's, mashallah, he's traveled a lot again, and a lot of the guests that we've had on the show so far, as you know, we've spoken about travels quite a bit. So that theme continues today, where we're going to hear about more experiences and more travels in places like Jordan, in places like the best of cities, Al-Madinah as well, subhanallah. So we're going to hear a lot about that, inshallah. We have with us someone who, mashallah, has been working with the youth quite a lot over the years, a lot of experience with youth work, someone who's also an imam and a teacher and a speaker. So we have the honor of hosting today Ustad Omar Hajaj. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah. Very good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well, and thank you again for joining us on the Ilmfeed podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's my honor, my pleasure to be here in Ilmfeed. A great project, mashallah, promoting positive, good news and good messages, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. Barakallah feek, Sheikh. So it's, I mean, like we mentioned, you've traveled quite a bit. You haven't just stayed in the UK. You've been around quite a bit. So we're going to, inshallah, discuss a bit more about that. But really, where did it all start for you? Where did it start? You know, where were you born, and at what age did you come to the UK? Because I believe when you came to the UK, you settled in Kent, right? So if you don't mind, just very briefly taking us through your journey, inshallah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala rasulillah. So originally I'm from Palestine. And it's my grandfather actually came to the UK with his children, my father and my uncles. I was born in Kent, in the UK, and the main reason for being in the UK, coming to the UK, is my grandfather. He lived in Jaffa, Jaffa today in Palestine, and he actually lived for like nearly 100 years, mashallah. So he was actually born during the time of the Ottoman Empire. And he lived in Palestine during the Ottoman rule, during the British Mandate rule, and then finally the Israeli occupation. And it was only after the early 60s where he decided to move. Right. So it was 10 years after the Israeli rule. Life was very difficult for Palestinian families to make a living, to trade, to move around, to have basic rights. In particular, my grandfather, who was known in the Middle East for being one of, if not the biggest, traders in oranges and citrus fruits. So he was trading his oranges from his grove to Palestine, to the Middle East, even to Europe. But it was only after things were getting more difficult and there was more tax being implemented, and then in the end he lost his property, his land, and then he went to Europe, and my father and uncles studied there. They were teenagers at that time. They studied here in the UK, and that's how we came as a family to London or to the UK.
Wow, subhanallah. I mean, just going back slightly, because I remember you posted something on social media as well, and even Ilmfeed, shared this post. That's where I first came across, this story. But just coming back to this place, Jaffa, you said, right? So is that actually where, because you mentioned your grandfather, he was trading oranges and stuff. So is that where the Jaffa cakes come from? Yeah, because obviously for those people who are listening or watching, if you've never had it, then obviously it's like an orange type cake, right? I can't really explain it better than that. So is that actually where it originates from?
A lot of the times I have to explain to people. Have you heard of Jaffa cakes? They say yes, of course. So did good marketing. But Jaffa cakes, because you can argue, very strong argument, I think, that the best oranges in the world are from Jaffa. They are really, really good, However, a lot of these companies are not run by Arabs or Palestinians
Of course, yeah.
anymore. So, but yeah, that's where it comes from, Jaffa. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So that's something, as in I had heard of it before, but you're the first person I'm meeting now that, mashallah, has that personal link. So, of course, you were born here. So when was the first time you then visited Palestine yourself? When was that?
Right. So, my father or uncles, they didn't go back to Palestine
Okay.
when they came back, when they came to the UK. My mother is Palestinian as well, but she's born in Jordan.
Okay.
So my uncles and my family from that side, they're all in Jordan. So her father left Jerusalem. So my mum's side of the family, they're from Al-Quds, they're from Palestine, Jerusalem. So as Jordanians, they became Jordanian citizens as well. They couldn't go back to Palestine. My first visit was as a British visitor. I went to Palestine in 2011. So it was a long time after. That was my first time. I went with a non-Muslim organization. It was a charity that was spreading awareness and information about Palestine.
Yeah.
And I chose them in particular because they were very neutral. They weren't biased, they weren't taking sides or anything. It was a group of 30 young people from Europe, Germany, Denmark, and we stayed in Palestine and other parts for like a week. And it was very educational, eye-opening for me, very inspirational. It was a reason for myself to... It was a turning point as well, I would say, that it made me come back knowing much more and wanting to do much more to help the Palestinian people and the situation.
You know what it is? I think with the younger generation nowadays, just an observation, you might agree or disagree. It's like they're not too, there's not that connection with their roots anymore.
Yes.
I feel like, so they don't have any interest in going, whether you're from Palestine, whether you're from Asia, regardless of which part of the world you're from. You don't really have that connection anymore, so you have no desire to sort of go back to see your land, to see your family there, the language as well. You don't really take an interest in it. It's just English, whatever, like in the country that you're living in the West. Yeah. So do you feel like that's the case nowadays, like with the youngsters?
And I think it's unfortunate. I think there's so much greatness in our history. Every type of history from every culture. I think history should always be preserved, documented. I've been like going around Newham a lot in East London, East End. Yeah. And all the shops, a lot of them are run by Asians. The markets is run by Asians because within the last 30, 40 years in particular, there's a lot of immigrants from Asia, Bangladesh, Pakistan. Yeah. And historically, this area was mostly, of course, white English people. And what type of businesses did they mostly have? So things like furnitures, carpet shops, bakeries. Yeah. So sometimes I go around, this is a weird hobby that I have, in a high street, looking for an authentic, I would call it, English shop that sells bakeries or furniture. And I find a few of them. And they're run down and they're very old. They probably don't make money or anything. Yeah. But I respect that it's still there because it's preserving the family business. You might find a shoe repair shop. And I'll ask them questions, or I'll look at the tags if it says established 1890s, 1930, 94. And I like that. So I think we don't document our history anymore. Most people our age, they don't know where their fathers were from, their grandparents were from. And we look down sometimes on our parents or grandparents. We think we're the educated people. We were born in the UK, we went to university. But not knowing that the gems, the real gems, the true stories that historians will die for is in our living rooms with our parents and grandparents.
Yeah. Very true. It's very true. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, a lot of the youngsters, they're losing this. And I think with the language as well, that's one of the main things, what I've observed. is that, you know, whether it's, you know, you're speaking Bengali or Urdu, or whether it's even the Arabic language, right? It's just like, no, we just want to stick to English. We just want to carry on with speaking English. We don't really take an interest in that. So, okay, fair enough. We see that in this generation, but then imagine by the time it gets to the next generation, it's going to be completely lost because, you know, they're not going to even hear the stories about their grandparents. So, subhanAllah, yeah, it's very interesting. Moving on then, so in terms of growing up in the UK, you said you're growing up in Kent. So as normal, I take it you went to college, you went to university. So what was that like? Because of course we're going to transition. There was a transition in your life that took place after university. But before we get to that, what was it like just going to university? That life basically. Because you went to University of Roehampton, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think my parents, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them, preserve them. My father, he passed away, rahimahullah. However, we didn't have like a strict religious household. So I was never like asked, I wish I did, but I was never asked like to go to a madrasa, to memorize Quran, to go to a weekend Quran school and so on. And they gave us some sort of freedom. I mean, my mother comes from a conservative family, so in terms of like adab, like manners and etiquettes and how to speak to people and so on, that was good, but there wasn't too much deen. So it was only in my teens actually that I personally took that step and that journey to wanting to become more religious. And I think that helped me even with my education. I think that really made me think about what I want to study and how to study. It changed my outlook and my insight to things and so on. So when I went to college and chose my A-levels, I was doing sociology as one of my subjects. And I really found it to be linked to studying Islam as well, because you can apply that knowledge by understanding society and the main institutions that impact society. So if it's the education system, the family system, the law system, religion, cultures, all of these influential institutions, studying them and then studying the theories, if it's globalization, if it's capitalism, if it's Marxism, feminism, all of these influential ideas and movements. And I found it was quite enlightening with me studying on the side with the local teachers in the UK who might have studied in Medina or the local imams. So I remember I was doing around 3 lessons a week in the masjid with my full-time college studies. Yeah. And to be honest, I used to look forward to that Wednesday or that Thursday where I have an Islamic lesson in the evening. And although I enjoyed my academic secular subjects, I used to wish that I was in that same setup, same type of building, facilities, qualified teachers, motivated students, but everything just Islamic. So I really wish, I really wanted to go to study abroad. Yeah. So from my time in college, so my plan was to go straight to Medina.
After college. After
college. Okay. So I applied towards the end of my first year. Yeah. Hoping that as soon as I get accepted, I can finish my college and then go abroad. I was thinking about other places. Egypt, Azhar. Yeah. Mecca, Al-Qura. And surprisingly, my heart wanted to go to Yemen as well. Okay. At that time, there was a center in a village in the mountains where you would live in like mud house type of houses. And so I thought, do you know what, this could be good for me to seclude myself.
Do you think you would have been able to hack in a place like that?
Fortunately, I didn't go there. Fortunately, because that same place has been affected badly by the war. Yeah, subhanAllah. And secondly, the institution is run by a particular group that I don't agree with personally. Of course, I respect them, but I don't think I would be seeing eye to eye with many of the other students. So it might have been difficult. Yeah, and then so I went Umrah, and towards my last year, not the end of my year, my first year,
Yeah.
and then I applied to Medina, but I didn't get accepted until 3 years after.
3 years, yeah.
So I had to go to university as a plan B.
Mm.
And going to university was a last minute decision.
Okay.
I actually applied first Arabic and Islamic studies in British universities.
Mm.
So it's SOAS, Oxford, Cambridge, Exeter, and Edinburgh. And I was trying my best to get A's so I can go to these unis. And I thought, that's it, I'm going to aim for that. But then I changed my mind. I said, you know what, I'm not going to study Arabic and Islamic studies here.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a different perspective. Even though I was happy with that, I was advised not to. I was advised to study Islam through Islamic scholars, not non-Islamic or non-Muslim scholars. And then maybe do your masters in one of these universities.
Mm.
So I pulled out my application, and I was going to do a free trade business project for a gap year.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know Jam was going to come. What was this idea? It's still copyrighted, so I hope no one steals it. It was to bring olive trees from Palestine
Okay.
and Jordan and Syria. At that time, there was no war in Syria. And to bring them to the UK and sell them to normal people and call them peace trees, or holy trees, because Wattini was Zaytun in the Quran. And the idea was that if you buy this tree, it's going to help the local farmers in these countries. And when you help people trade, you're going to empower them. They're going to be maybe 10 times richer than giving them charity or donations. They're going to work hard. They're not going to be dependent on donations and be lazy and have that in them and their families, which will destroy them more. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They said if you are going to sell sticks for people to make a fire and benefit from that fire, cook with it or do whatever with, then that is better than stretching your arm and begging people. So I thought, okay, it will empower people and it will be a social enterprise business for myself. And then literally there was 2-3 weeks left until university, and I just went on the clearing website and I saw anthropology available.
Okay.
Where is it? In a university that's 3 miles away from my house.
Okay.
And
Convenient, basically.
And subhanAllah, it was the perfect subject because I was so into sociology to the point where I'll do voluntary assignments and coursework in my holiday.
Wow.
That's how much I enjoyed it. And so I wanted something similar.
Yeah.
And I was always looking for anthropology, but I just didn't know what the name of the course was. Because sometimes in my spare time I used to read about, there was a big book with pictures, massive book called People. And it's about different tribes and nations and languages from all over the world. So I used to be interested in reading this book. And then anthropology is the study of people and cultures and so on. So I went into that.
MashaAllah. So you went to university, and you of course you finished the course, and it was only after that you went to the University of Medina, right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't finish the course.
Oh, you didn't actually finish it?
I studied for 2 years.
Yeah.
And just before my 3rd year, I found out the news I got accepted.
Ah, I see.
So it wasn't planned, and it was a really difficult time because my father just passed away at that time, close to that time, and I was going a bit far, you can say, or making it in what I was doing, in the career that I was doing, in what I was studying, in some of the positions that I had in activism or da'wah. And then Medina came. So it was going to change everything for me. And I had, literally in 3 weeks, I had to change everything and be in Medina.
Wow. So it was a quick turnaround.
It was a quick
from
turnaround.
Here to Medina. So now just focusing on your life before Medina, so the first couple of years at university, because you mentioned that you were involved quite a bit with, the university, activism, ISOC, events, even FOSIS, right? And subhanAllah, I think that's a real positive with the university students, especially here in the UK. In general, the Muslim students are very active in terms of when it comes to activism, when it comes to charity work. And mashallah, you were involved yourself as well. And then you went to Medina, you've come back. Is it still the same now, would you say? Do you think it's gone stronger? Like, what is the, what have you observed from the university students, the Muslim students in particular?
I think so. Just to add, so during my time in university, I feared that this acceptance of me being in Medina, I can't. If I delay it too much, I'm not going to get that chance.
Yeah.
And it was always my dream since college days. I used to dream to be in Medina. So I didn't want to lose that opportunity. So I spoke to my university about deferring my course to go to Medina and come back and continue it. So that's still a plan. This September, inshallah. Just the fees are too expensive. We'll speak about student loans in another topic.
Yeah.
In another time. Two things that I learned. So I started becoming active in college, and I became the president of student union in college.
Okay.
For a few reasons, and this is because colleges, in particular, they don't have as much freedom as universities. Universities got the Islamic societies, but not knowing there's a lot of rights for students in colleges, they just don't know it. There is meant to be SUs, and NUS are meant to serve colleges as well, not just universities. But there's more control in colleges. So many colleges don't have a prayer room. They don't have halal meat. And my college in particular, they promoted themselves as a secular college, and they didn't even want to let us have Jum'ah prayers.
Yeah.
They didn't want us to pray in Jama'ah. They said, if you're going to pray in Jama'ah, congregation, maximum 2-3 people.
Wow, okay.
So this is why I decided to get involved in SU. For two reasons. Number one, to bring ease to the Muslim student. They can eat halal meat, they can pray Jum'ah, they can have a prayer room.
Yeah.
And to serve the general non-Muslim students as well. I didn't want to take that position just for...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and if you are able to facilitate ease for students and serve them, that is still ajr, even if they're not Muslim. And if they see it's a Muslim who is making our studies easier for us, facilitating services, doing programs for us, then this is a good way to engage and to build good relationships. So alhamdulillah, I think that was a good experience. There was a lot of challenges. The principal, the vice principal, they tried their best to stop us from praying and so on. But through campaigning and alhamdulillah, we managed to get somewhere. University was it was a big joy for me because now I can do whatever I want to do with less restrictions. In fact, SU, they encourage you to be involved. I think at my time, people didn't get too involved in people saw it as, this is politics, this is activism, this is campaigns. Us Muslims shouldn't get involved in it. And a lot of Muslims as well, due to personalities really, they feel too shy to come out of the box, to be in maybe the light, to have meetings with staff. So most Muslims, they just want to go study, go home, that's it. They don't want to get involved in anything. It's too challenging and they fear challenges. But now, alhamdulillah, we have more of our type of brothers who are involved in ISOCs and student activism. Previously, anyone who used to be involved with SU, you won't find him with a beard. You'll find him going to parties with... It's not the usual practicing Muslim who will get involved in the SU or NUS. But now it's changing. Now, alhamdulillah, Muslims are understanding that there is benefit in political participation. And this starts in college and in university. And, a lot of young people, they're 18, they get excited, they want to live in this ideal Islamic, society where everything's perfect, where the whole ummah, they're all united and everyone's following the Quran and so on. But let's give you a small test. Run your ISOC, make that successful, serve the Muslims in your university, serve
Yeah.
the few hundred Muslims. If that goes well, then inshallah you can think about other things. So I think it's a good test or training for Muslims to develop their skills,
Yeah.
to do something good, to leave a legacy, to serve students. And there's a benefit as well with non-Muslims as well. It's not just about us.
Yeah.
We need to clarify to many people who innocently don't know who Muslims are, unfortunately, because they've been getting bad media for 20 years. They've been miseducated. Who's going to change that? Us. And it's not going to happen unless we get involved and we're with them and we engage and we discuss and have conversations with them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, I mean, it's not just the UK anymore, because I'm even hearing, even in places like the US and like even Germany and other parts of Europe, like alhamdulillah, the students are getting involved, they're getting together, doing, they're becoming more active, more charity work, etc. I think the point you mentioned is very important, because like if you wait until university and everything's finished, then of course like you've missed out on a lot of time. And within that time you could have developed a lot of skills, leadership skills, communication skills. And I think you're right, you have to start with your like community, right? Before wanting to like make a bigger impact. Yeah, you have to start with your community. So alhamdulillah, I mean, it's really great the fact that you were involved with those things. But then like we said, all of a sudden, after about 2 years, things take a turn. And within a few weeks, you are in the ideal place, right? You've gone from London, or you've gone from Roehampton Uni to all of a sudden now Medina Uni. So it's like, alhamdulillah, it's a dream come true for yourself.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? Like, was it a different world completely? Did you find yourself like, you were comfortable, so to speak, here, you were doing your own thing, and now you're completely in a new place? Oh, of course, it's home, but end of the day, it's still new. So what was that experience, that transition like?
Subhanallah, I can't describe the experience, how I felt. I remember getting the news that I got accepted. I couldn't believe it, and it was around 10:30 p.m. and at that time I was working for an Islamic magazine called Al-Jum'ah magazine. And I was so passionate about that work because it's educating Muslims. It's got great articles and stuff. I used to work overtime, and I made it part of my life. So I was working late again in the office, and then someone texted me saying, "Are you Omar Hajaj?" That's my father's name. And when he asked me that, I said, "Subhanallah, is there something wrong?" Because no one knows my father's name. People just know me as Omar Hajaj, maybe, but not. So I said, yes, why? And then he said, check the Medina website. And in Medina, when you apply, you have to give your father's name. You have to give 3 names. So I checked the website. There was 30 names there, and in the middle, I saw my name there. I said, Subhanallah. I couldn't believe it, and I felt, we shouldn't say this, but I felt like I don't deserve this. Allah's being kind and generous to me. He's giving me this gift, though I know I don't deserve this. I know I'm not worth this privilege, this blessing. So I went home straight away, and I was just thinking about Medina. Of course, there was a lot of things happening at that time with family, studies, da'wah, etc., work. But my heart wanted to go. I said, no matter how difficult it's going to be to go, I'm going. So there's a lot of questions people will say, what about your studies? Don't study, you're not going to get a job if you go to Medina. Stay here, finish your degree, get a job. But I just didn't want to lose it. And then I prayed istikhara. Before that, I spoke to my mother straight away. She said, no, you're not going. I don't want you to go. You can't go for 5 years abroad on your own. You're not going. And then, I remember sitting with her, and I was just speaking to her calmly and saying, this is what I want to do. This is my dream. This is what I wanted to do for a long time. And, I'm going to Prophet's Mosque. I'm going to live in Medina. There's nothing better than that. And subhanAllah, alhamdulillah, she was convinced. Usually, like, my mother was the type that she would never let us sleep out.
Yeah, yeah.
She would never let me sleep over at my friend's house, and so no matter how much I beg her, but subhanallah, she didn't. She felt comfortable when I said Medina and the Prophet's Mosque and so on. And then I spoke to Imam Wasim Kempson as well, who studied in Medina University. And I said, just to be like comfortable, I said, what about my studies? What? He said, go, get everything, go. You don't know that if you delay it for a year, things can change. You're going to lose your visa. You're not going to. So I spoke to my university, and to my surprise, they were like, okay, that sounds great. That's a great opportunity. Yeah, they said go. And then when you come back, we stayed in touch in email. By email, you can defer your studies, or you can do your degree somewhere else. You can transfer to a different university. So I said okay, and my plan was to continue studying anthropology. Yeah. So which didn't happen, to be honest. While I was in Medina. But sorry, just to add, I think I did study anthropology practically there, because Medina, anthropology is about diversity of different people. And subhanAllah, Medina, that university was a mini village of students from 120 countries. Some who came from the jungle, literally. Some who came from Brazil. Some who came from Papua New Guinea. Some who came from countries that you've never heard of, I've never heard of. So it was amazing to mix with them and learn so many new things. I think that was the real anthropology that I learned.
Sounds like it. So like I've been to Medina, right? Alhamdulillah, like I've been blessed to go for 5 times for Umrah. And of course, like afterwards you go to Medina, and those few days that you spend in Medina, it's like it's home, the peace, serenity, everything, right? So like I can just imagine myself, if I went to Medina and if I knew I was living there for the next 4, 5, however many years, I'd become so comfortable, I'd just be in like a bubble kind of thing, right? And then all of the things that I did in the UK and in my home, I'd start to forget, like there's a community there, and of course we need to serve that community as well. There's a need there, so it's easy to just sort of drift off. But is that what happened with you, or because you still continued working with the youth somehow, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about that and the importance of not, for example, just going away and forsaking your people, so to speak. Yeah. So what was it that you got up to whilst you were there?
That's a good question, actually. I remember the first couple of days just being alone, not knowing anyone, trying to get to one office in like a building that's like 20 minutes walk away, and it's so hot. Yeah, there was that struggle, but I enjoyed that struggle. I enjoyed like no one knows me here. Yeah. I can just focus on connecting with Allah. So I remember during the day I'm running around different places getting paperwork done and stuff, meeting new people, like seeing new faces, just observing. And then that same night I remember walking in the Jama. It's after Maghrib, it's peaceful, it's quiet. The masjid is here, the faculties are here, the accommodation is here, there's a shop here, restaurant here, a place to wash your clothes. I said, subhanAllah, I can imagine myself living here. It's so humbling, and just looking up the sky and thinking, subhanAllah, I'm enjoying this. Like there's nothing better than this, alhamdulillah. And I said to myself, there's nothing better to do as well in your life than take this journey of seeking knowledge. Of course, we know whoever takes the path of seeking knowledge, Allah will make Jannah easy for that person. Yeah. However, that doesn't mean seeking knowledge becomes easy, because Jannah is not cheap. So I said this is amazing. At that time we didn't even have WhatsApp. I didn't have internet. I had to go to the internet cafe just to send emails to my family. But it was good. I think I needed it. Yeah. And more than the knowledge, this is what I wanted. I wanted like zuhud. I wanted to like a new chapter.
To your own space, just be away a bit.
Yeah, I want to like try to get my iman to a higher level and so on. That was my main aim, and I didn't mind just being alone. However, after a few months, the ISOC and FOSIS and the campaigns and stuff, I tried to bring it to Medina University. Okay. I remember my first week, because I used to, read the Metro every morning. So I wanted a newspaper. So I'm going to the shop. There's a shop inside Jama. They don't have any newspapers. So I'm saying, how can Jama Islamiyya not have a newspaper? These students are meant to be the leaders in the future, the scholars in the future. They must know what's going on around the world.
Yeah.
So every person I'm asking, they laughed at me. So why do you want a newspaper? No one reads newspaper. And literally none of the students. So there was this bubble. And then you meet a student, oh, Sheikh Khudair is coming, Sheikh Khudair, he's got so much ilm, there's this dawrah, and people are just running there and then running there. And literally, you know, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in Palestine, no clue. And at that time in particular, there was problems in Gaza. And subhanAllah, it really affected me. Like, I'll stay up till midnight, not being able to sleep. And, you know, going on connecting on the Wi-Fi near the Haram, one of the hotels, on my laptop. But coming back to the Jama, no one cared or no one knew about it. So then I met some of the British brothers, some of the American brothers, and some of the mashayikh. There was one sheikh that he's from Riyadh. I knew him before. He introduced me to some of the mashayikh in Medina who got projects and things going on. And the sheikh, he vouched for me. He said, this guy used to be in ISOCs and he used to be in youth work and so on. So through meeting these mashayikh, they said, we want you to do stuff for the UK students, because the reputation of the UK students to the mashayikh, a lot of them drop out. They're all very serious. They don't say salam to anyone. They're not friendly. They don't have any activism. Whereas the Malaysian students, they have gatherings, they have trips, they have things going on. They pick up the new students. So they were saying, 10 years we've had nothing from the British people. So we want you to start that. So that was, I tried to do that in the first year. It was a bit challenging because I was just a new student and I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. But literally there was nothing going on. There was no football, there was no trips, there was no
activities.
No activities.
Like,
I thought, what's going on here?
Everyone's just serious. Everyone's just like...
and we should be even more... We should have an ISOC style or more than the UK, because we're students. And we need this bonding and this brotherhood because we want to cooperate in the future so that da'wah can be stronger. No one, hardly anyone realised this until I met a few brothers. Ustaz Ashraf Dabous. He's a mutakharrij now, mashallah. He's deputy imam of Lusham. Ustaz Salih Abu Muhammad, imam in Tarbiyah. His brother as well, Ustaz Abu Khalid Imran. Ustaz Muhammad Uthman Abu Safiya. So some of these brothers, Ustaz Abdul Kareem, Ustaz Mustafa, we met. And that's where it started. We said we need to do something. We need to create a brotherhood. And then from there, alhamdulillah, things started.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so it's a really important point, the fact that not just scholars, students of knowledge, but even, you know, people who are active Muslim leaders in the community, to not basically shut themselves off, but to actually get involved and to be aware as well. You know, like we said, you travel, brilliant, alhamdulillah, it's a very noble thing to travel and seek knowledge, but don't forget, you know, your community and try to serve them, because end of the day, I'm sure you know that, you know, better when it comes to ilm and when it comes to knowledge, that you have to do something with it, right? It's not just keeping the knowledge to yourself and not acting upon it for yourself and giving something back. So then there was this new sort of thing, mashallah, that you started doing, which was the youth tours, right? Where you now started involving the youth from the UK. And not only involving them, but bringing them to Medina for Umrah. So tell us a bit about that and how that came about.
Right, okay. So, alhamdulillah, there was a few youth activities before going to Medina. You know, like sleepovers, youth clubs, trips, and so on. And then when I used to come back to the UK, I used to spend my summer doing youth activities mainly and programs. And then 2 years before I finished my studies, I said I wanted to do something bigger. And that's same taste that I'm getting from Medina. I want to make a mini program for like 10 days or a week for the youth in the UK. So some of the things or locations that I've visited and I've had like special experiences, an enjoyable program, but that's spiritual at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I believe that if you just give the youth, or if you promote to the youth that come to this ilmi, knowledge-based program, this course, they're not interested in that. But if you tell them there's quad biking, there's horse riding, there's desert nights, there's trips, there's villa nights and so on, they will come.
Sounds appealing.
It sounds appealing. It sounds like the trip of my life.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were attracted to it, alhamdulillah. And then who are they spending time with? They're spending time with, friendly, down to earth Medina students. So they'll say, okay, religious people are not that bad. They're actually quite fun. I can get along with them. I can look up to them.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I wouldn't mind to start practicing, and maybe I'll be a Medina student one day as well, or maybe I'll study the religion. And then, we indirectly try to influence them by being their friend. Once they love you, they will listen to you. So we created that, bonding with them, and then we had some small like sessions and group discussions and workshops, drama plays. Then we introduced them to some of the great scholars who many of us would love to meet.
Yeah.
And I used to say before the sheikh will come, I used to say, I know you won't appreciate right now who this sheikh is. I could tell you he's a professor. I could tell you he's got a special chair in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. That doesn't mean much to you. But one day I hope you will say that when I was 14, 15 years old, I met Sheikh Shanqiti. And yeah, so they have special private access to these scholars. Alhamdulillah, we've taken around 300 youth so far to Mecca and Medina to perform Umrah and to have hopefully an inspirational program. And we are still connected with a lot of these young people in follow-up programs. So we hope, inshallah ta'ala, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, that it's got some positive impact to the youth and can hopefully change them for the better.
How many trips have you done like this?
So we've done approximately 7 trips so far. We've got another one coming up next month, inshallah, for the ISOCs.
Inshallah.
This is a different one. This is for university and college students.
Okay, brilliant, mashallah. I mean, because the thing is, with the youngsters, they seem to be, moving away from the deen and from the religion. And of course, there needs to be a way to pull them back in, right? Whether they're getting involved in, be it gang violence or drug abuse in extreme cases, or just, just not interested. Some of them, they might not be up to no good, but they're just not interested in the deen either.
Yeah.
They're just going to college, uni, getting a job and just going on with their lives. So do you feel like that, we could say, the way you're doing things and that mindset to have, instead of trying to really throw the deen in their face kind of thing, like in your face, like, no, come to the masjid or, read some Quran and become better. Rather than doing that, which of course, ultimately is the aim, we do need to also, enjoy a bit and allow them to have a bit of fun. And they're young at the end of the day, and that's what they're seeing around them, right? So do you feel like that's also, that's we could say that's the route we need to go down? Yeah,
100%, because Islam is about understanding your society, your community, your people. And you need to understand youth. You need to understand young people, and the obligation is not to teach them these books and for them to become students of knowledge and scholars. Our obligation is to make them love Islam, to make them love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make them pray. For me, that's enough for now. When they're ready and they want to, take further steps, yes, we will support them, we will facilitate for them to study and to take programs, which many of them end up doing, alhamdulillah. But the first approach, the first steps is very important. We can see the results of people who were forced to go to madrasas and Quran, and they left practicing altogether. And these were people who memorized Quran, whereas those who came with a willing heart and they felt the brotherhood. A lot of people that I speak to, and I ask them how did they practice. Those who are like leaders in the community now, running masjids and so on, a lot of them said it was a trip. They there was this trip I went with the brothers. It was this night out once, went with the brothers. We had so much fun, and then we spoke about the deen, and then I repented. I started becoming a practicing Muslim.
Yeah.
It wasn't forced. It wasn't through these approaches. So I think it's very important we understand the mentality of youngsters. We're gentle with them. We're easygoing, and sometimes we need to do a lot of taghaful. Taghaful means a blind eye to matters that should be dealt with later.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's bigger problems to focus on. Okay, I can keep a blind eye on a few things and sort it out later because I got something more important to deal with, because we can't solve every problem, and we shouldn't expect an idealistic solution. We should accept the reality and do akhaf al-dararain, keep minimizing the evil. If someone, he might not be studying the deen, but at least he's away from haram, alhamdulillah. So that's a good step. There's different levels of people, and the Prophet ﷺ was the perfect model for us.
Yeah.
He spent a lot of his time with the youth, and he knew how to deal with them, and different types of shabab, and he was very easygoing with the shabab. لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا. He is not from us, the one who doesn't show rahmah, mercy, compassion, care, gentleness to the youth. This is the kalam of the Prophet ﷺ.
I mean, with the millennial generation now, it's known as the millennial generation, right? In the day and age of social media and technology, I mean, we're seeing this slight generational gap, so to speak. So, what would your advice be? Firstly, we're gonna have two pieces of advice, inshallah, to end off with. Right. Your first piece of advice to those from the older generation, because you've already given one in terms of rahmah, having that compassion with the youngsters. So, what would your advice be with those who, like, a bit older, we could say old school, and might not, of course, can't relate to the youngsters. The youngsters can't relate to them, but long term, it can have a negative impact by either just ignoring the problem and saying, just you get on with your thing and I get on with mine. Or, actually going about it the wrong way and dealing with them the wrong way. It could have a negative impact on the youngsters. So what would your advice be to those from the older generation? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I think being their friend, spending lots of good quality time with them, and even if it's something, it's not Islamic, but it's mubah, it's leisure, it's good quality family time. You'll find that someone will open up to a friend that he trusts. Yeah. This friend that's not going to judge me, that's not going to tell me off, that's not going to look down on me. I would open up and I would tell him my issues because I trust that person. So I think that should be established between parents and that generation. Be their friend, be close to them, bond and engage with them. And then you will find that they would follow you, they would listen to you, they would respect you. And, young people are not as bad as people think, subhanAllah. They're not as bad as people think. They're actually intelligent, smart, and they're understanding. If you, as Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, put yourself on the people's level. Do not speak to them about things that they can't comprehend. Yeah. So similarly, just be on the level of the shabab, and you'll be one of them, inshallah.
There's a lot of potential, right, in the youngsters nowadays.
Absolutely.
And the final piece of advice would be for the youngsters themselves. What and many of them are listening or watching. Inshallah. So, what would your advice, inshallah, be to the younger generation?
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This is a difficult one, actually. So I don't usually give them advice. Yeah. I just, just try to spend time with them. Unless they ask me, but so
it could be a youngster who's not necessarily on a high level of religiosity, but it could be someone who's trying to find their way, maybe hasn't realized their own potential yet. So what would your advice be in terms of the way they're going about things, or the way they're dealing with the older generation as well?
I would say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there for you. Regardless how young you are, Allah is the one who understands your situation more than your parents, more than your family. And call to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Try to become closer to Him. And you will find that He will give you that comfort and guidance in your life, inshallah ta'ala. And know that Islam is happiness. It's not a strict, difficult part. You'll be more happy if you follow Islam, even in this age. And you'll be, inshallah ta'ala, one of those who will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, when there will be no shade except the shade of Allah. Is a shab nasha'a. He lived his life, his youth, fi ta'atillah, in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And take advantage of your youth before you become old. You got the energy, you got the time, you got the sharpness, the smartness. Use this now. Use your curiosity that you have to learn more about the religion. If you start from now, you can be like Imam Nawawi. Imam Nawawi started in his youth. He was young when he studied. By the age of 40, he passed away. Look at the legacies that he left behind. Imam Bukhari, 25 years old as well. And he's Imam Bukhari that narrated the hadith that, or recorded and compiled the hadith that we have. So start now, definitely. Start now, inshallah. You are better than me, because if you start from this young age, you'll be better than most of us. You can achieve much more if you start now.
Alhamdulillah, I think that's a really good a note to end on in terms of the advice for the older generation and the advice for the youngsters. Alhamdulillah, I think we've covered quite a bit from the very beginning. So Jazakallah khairan, Shaykh. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your wisdoms with us. And of course, barakallahu feekum to all of our listeners and all of our viewers. We thank Ustad Omar Hajaj for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it, inshallah. And to take those, to take all of the wisdoms and all of the piece of advice on board, inshallah. And to, of course, check out all of the work that Ustad is doing, especially with the youth tours, inshallah. You never know, you might be with him, inshallah, on a trip to the Holy Lands in the near future, inshallah. So we end here. Thank you so much once again. Please do, inshallah, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep an eye out on our social media. We have plenty more episodes of these podcasts coming your way, inshallah. From myself, Shabir, and the rest of the team. Until next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.